Got it. Right. Here we go. Or screen share for you. All righty. I think we are recording, and so we will wait until why is it saying Zoom YouTube broadcast? That is not what I wanted to be saying. What just happened here? Okay, how do I?
Here on my end, it says we are live on YouTube.
Normal. Very good. Okay, I think we are recording, and so there we wait until, and as soon as somebody says we're being heard, then we will get this party started. Yay, somebody's here. Whee! All right, so what's going on? Is your fast? Your fast is over. Your fast was over the other day.
The fast is over. It's spring. It's spring.
It is spring. I went to Palm Springs. It was like kind of cold and rainy almost the whole time.
Dreamy.
Went to the tennis tournament. And I don't know if you've seen, like, it's been social, like, you know, sort of floating around on social media. I might do something deeper and more meaningful on it. But there was this weird bee invasion during one of the matches, during the quarterfinal match between Zverev and Carlos Alcaraz, right? And there's this one shot that they showed where Bill Gates, who was in the audience because he's obsessed with tennis, right? He's staring at it with this like gleeful look on his face, like when he released those mosquitoes at the TED Talk, right? And so I'm like, fuck, maybe he's moved on from mosquitoes to bees. They have a better needle, right?
I wouldn't put it past him. I mean, it's weird how everyone's talking about the sorry, I'm just trying to mute us. He's been doing the mosquitoes for over a decade. Like,
right.
We're all talking about, yeah, he's probably gone on to bees and crocodiles and ants and aluminum foil. Like, I put nothing past the psycho. Why is he still running unchecked? Why, with everything we have on him that has been exposed, is he not in prison?
Because I mean, it's because he's playing his character perfectly, right? Like, it's entirely possible that all that stuff is completely made up, right? And the reaction to it is bigger than the thing itself. And so he's playing it well. So there was the bee invasion in Palm Springs, but then there was also the last night we were there, we moved from Palm Desert, where we were staying near the tennis tournament at just like a regular hotel. We decided we'd splurge for a fancy night in Palm Springs. Right. So we got the smallest room at a very fancy hotel. Right. But when we got there and we checked in, like, our room was like a huge suite, like super fancy. Like, what the fuck is this? Right. So Laura goes back and she's like, I don't think this is our room. He's like, no, that's your room. Is it too spacious for you? I can't figure out, like, the room that I booked is the smallest room. So maybe they ran out of rooms and that was the only one left or whatever it was. But we got like the $800 or $900 a night room. Right. So we enjoyed a final, you know, like that bit of good fortune in exactly that little corner of Palm Springs, like, you know, where Palm Canyon sort of curves around, and it's like the coolest part of that area, and it's like also the most don't worry darling-y part of it, right? But we enjoyed that aspect of the simulation for that evening, and here we are.
Awesome. Yay. It sounds like you guys had a great time.
We did. All right. And now I'm ready to have a great time with you. And I think we have some friends in the sandbox. So we're ready to throw mud balls. Let's get it on.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. You have a bunch of clips. I don't have clips, but I have stories. So what would you like to start with? Let's go with the clips because we have them. And then we can do the stories that are sans clips at the end. Where would you like to start? I have them already. And I also have that article up. Pull up.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to give you a choice between Candace and or Brett and Heather.
Which one is funnier?
Candace.
All right, let's start serious and we'll work our way towards funny. We'll go Brett, Emma Stone, Candace, and then we'll get to the clipless stories. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
All right, awesome.
Emma Stone is just peak ridiculous.
All right, so I have this This podcast, I have not watched any of it, though it has shown up in my feed a number of times, and I keep thinking, maybe I'll get to it, but you told me there was no need because you would tell me whatever I need to know. And so I have outsourced my thinking about this to you, and bring it on.
I think I'm trustworthy in this realm. So we're just watching 2 clips, and the first one starts at 7:44.
Brett.
7:44? All right.
Yes.
I guess I have to make it big to do that. Okay, so 7:44. All right, wait, here we go. I have to do, gotta have the commercial. All right, here we go.
Couldn't be true, but it will not simply be true by virtue of us discovering each new way to become more efficient.
Fair use.
We are playing with very dangerous technologies. We crossed over in the 20th century to technologies that were literally capable of driving humanity extinct in one go. That was new, and so we don't have the evolutionary toolkit that would prepare us to be properly cautious about those things. And so far we've gotten away with it, but the idea that the market, this blind force, is going to navigate us wisely enough through that minefield is preposterous. What we need is enlightened governance, and I know that many in both of our audiences will bristle at that because it sounds like a desire for world government, which it absolutely is not. It is a desire for something that oddly enough comes.
Note the exact same tactic that Gaffney and Aubrey were using. We're like, I know it sounds like one world religion, but trust me, it isn't, even though it is.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Out of Catholicism called subsidiarity. And what subsidiarity means is that everything must be governed at the lowest useful level. But there are some processes that are truly global. We need to have some way of managing the oceans so that we don't have opportunists depleting them so that they're not there for the rest of us. That somehow has to be managed at a global scale. On the other hand, the content of your local school doesn't need to be. And it turns out that medical policy is much better done where your doctor can advise you about your.
So this is the problem.
Wait, just finish. There's one more sentence. And
for health, rather than having the World Health Organization tell your doctor what treatments you have to take.
Okay, stop. I just want to repeat what he just said was, it turns out that medical policy is much better done where your doctor can advise you about your health.
Right.
So he's still experts. You can't be trusted with your own health.
Well, it's not only
like, expert will.
It's not only that. It's not only the appeal to authority nonsense about it, but it's this like weird, like, I don't know what I'm going to describe the scenario, and I don't know if there's a word for it, right? Okay. Basically, he's realized that having an overarching authority in the medical reality doesn't work, but he thinks it might work for the ocean, right? He hasn't figured it, right? So like he can't take one fantastic shit show and go, yeah, that didn't work out well. Maybe we shouldn't do that with another thing, right? Like maybe we should let.
But we know that his brain doesn't work like that.
Correct. But this
doesn't make those connections.
This is why this is just his natural, like inch by inch, row by row that we talked about a little bit back, or whether this is why they like him so much, because he is like slow walks everything, because he can't extrapolate. And this is why he is so offended by the conspiracy theorists, or what did he call us? The people who like, he had a name
cynics.
For us cynics, right? Is because we can extrapolate a lesson from one class and apply it to a similar type of thing that the teacher in another class is trying to brainwash us with. Correct. And say like no to this and definitely like no to this, right? Like let's just pretend that we believe in authority like he does. Sure. Right? That if your doctor is the best to manage your health, wouldn't like the local nation or the local city where the ocean touches the land under his like version of like what subsidiarianism or something, whatever he just said, yes. Wouldn't that be the best? So we don't need one manager for the ocean. We need local managers for the ocean. And maybe those should also like coincide with like fishermen and people who like are out on the ocean every day and not just people whose house sits on it. Right.
But that's an idea that serves the greatest good for the most people, not just this like group of nefarious fucktards.
The enlightened ones.
Correct. The enlightened ones. Yeah.
This is the other thing, and I was thinking about this when I was driving today, right? Like I am not for rule by experts under any like they always say we have to have experts, as if not having experts be in charge would mean that there wouldn't be experts. Like when like you're an expert on like article writing and language and word crafting and whatever. So I don't need there to be like a mandate that I go to you for language lessons to ask your opinion if I need help with something based around language, right? Like authorities and experts will still exist. It will just be people will choose to appeal to them or to use their services or not, right? So,
but you just use the dirty word called choose, and I don't think that's something that will be allowed in the future into which Heather and Brett are attempting to lead us.
Correct. So, I mean, maybe you'll be able to choose which color Birkenstocks you're allowed to wear. That's about it, right?
Between two.
Right. Between like, right. Or maybe it's just the two different materials. Maybe it'll be like, there's like these weird plastic Birkenstocks now. You can have the leather or the plastic, but there's only one color. It's just brown. Anywho. So it would be one thing, like I would still not go along, but I would be like less turned off and offended if when saying we need experts to rule us, they didn't include themselves as part of the experts that need to rule. Like I can have some level of respect for someone who's like, I don't know, I'm a tennis player and all I really care about is playing tennis. So I don't want to have to think about making decisions for everybody else. There are experts for that. I'll defer to them. Like that's not the way I like to roll necessarily. On things, but like I can respect that. Like I can go, okay, that's cool. It frees you up to only think about the thing you like. That is part of freedom, right? That's part of freedom for some people. Okay. Right. But there's never a time when they say we need experts where they're not including themselves as part of the council of experts that's going to be the enlightened world government or whatever, right?
100%. And notice how at the beginning of the clip, he said, so we don't have the evolutionary toolkit that would prepare us to be properly cautious about those things. So he has to drop in his realm of expertise.
Right.
But he's also talking about these potential extinction events as though we didn't have nukes on the planet in the 40s. Like, according to Brett, they're like something very new, just like his discovery of, fuckery in the World Health Organization. Like, oh my God, you guys, we have this technology on the planet that could destroy everyone. I'm exposing this for the first time.
Oh, maybe he's a whistleblower. Right. Okay. But it's also like, we'll forget about like all the questions about whether nukes really exist. And if they do, how do they work and all that kind of stuff. We'll forget about those layers of cynical conspiratorial thinking and just pretend that they are exactly as advertised. Right. Yeah, exactly. It's like a lot of this is not necessarily new. Right. But has he ever made it through a single podcast without saying the word evolutionary?
No, because his every podcast is government sponsored propaganda. And the key to propaganda, as we all know, is repetition. So of course not, or he would fail and the lizards behind the scene would be very unhappy with him.
The ones in the green room?
Correct.
How do you find them in the green room?
What do you mean?
They just blend into the background because they're green.
Well, that's true. Ties. Okay, so this is an alley-oop right now. So Brett just tossed it up, and Heather's about to come in with a slam dunk at 53-18.
53-18. All right.
And I think this might be a first because a certain word is now introduced.
She said to me, why we have to move.
It's an assumption.
All right, here we go. Let me shrink it back down, and here we go. Okay.
It is not based in reality, or at least that is an assumption, and you need to demonstrate to all of us that that is true before you then bring back this complaint about the ecology textbooks. That said, both are fundamental. Like both exist in necessarily and in considerable abundance in all human operations and non-human operations. And it is a mistake of both, academia and say, free market people who speak as if it's one or the other. The many in academia right now would have us believe that any competition is bad. That's a 4-letter word. And it's not as stark on the other side, but discussion of things that sound like the collective, or we're going to have to collaborate now. Don't make me collaborate if I don't want to. That sounds like socialism. Like, you know what? We need to bring these concepts back together and recognize that neither exists without the other, and that both have been around almost since the very beginning of life on Earth.
Yeah, I mean, I think
both what? Socialism and ecology?
Socialism and free market capitalism, which is not socialism, but I think that's how they're pitching it. And that's it from this podcast.
So I don't have any Brett or Heather clips today. But I did tune in for about 3 minutes and 12 seconds, maybe a little longer, to their live stream today. They were reading ads for the wellness company. Right? Or
well, they were included in that. I mean, Polly really focused on their
what we're talking about will be in a regular Words podcast out tomorrow for our supporters over at wordspodcast.locals.com. What we're referring to when she said that the thing about Polly. But so they were reading ads for probiotics and grass-fed meat and all kinds of things that are connected to that thing. But it was funny, like they were reading them. Like at least when like Dave Rubin or Michael Malice does it or something, who I saw on the trail yesterday. And then immediately after I saw him on the trail I saw that there's a new tattoo coffee shop open called Dark Horse. So somehow I'm being gang stalked by,
Is he smaller than you are?
About the same size. He looks older in person.
Okay.
He's much older, I think, than we think he is. I think he's in his 60s.
Really?
Right? Yeah, I think I was surprised when I heard someone mention how long he had been around or how long, like he's at least in his like late 50s, but he could be in his 60s. It's interesting. He looks very young still, even right, but older in person, and he looks very young on screen. But he had a decent vibe about him. It was, you know what I mean? Like it was just he had headphones on. I thought about screaming out, Michael Malice. And then I saw you had headphones, so I didn't do it.
You could have just thrown something at him.
Yeah, I'll plan better next time. I'll bring a pocket full of rocks.
Please do.
Anywho, so they were reading the ads. Like at least when Dave Smith and Dave Rubin and Michael Malice and Dr. Drew, whatever, read their, narrative control ads or whatever it is, they are like doing it either from a teleprompter or they've memorized it. So it looks like they know what they're talking about. Literally, they're reading it from a piece of paper, right? And Heather is reading it with no enthusiasm at all. Like she is so mad. Her life has gotten to the point where she is fucking reading ads on YouTube. I don't know what she did to deserve the job of handling Brett, who actually seemed quite excited to also be reading ads. So neither one of them, despite their evolutionary toolkits, are impressive enough to memorize the ad that they read every episode.
Right.
Right? Yeah.
Great noticing, Emily.
And if I recall, well, I don't want to break any. Okay, just tell me to shut up if I'm saying something I shouldn't. When you met with Heather,
yep,
she called Dave Rubin a problem.
I don't recall that.
Like, right, because he'd gone so right-wingy. I feel like what you told me was that you guys were talking about.
I'm not recalling that, but that sounds like something that definitely could have happened.
So it's funny to me that she's sponsored by, like, she's reading the Moink ad, and Moink is like a beef and chicken and pork box or whatever it is, and it's right. And I'm sitting there laughing at that. She's now reading the ad that from the same like controlling hand that was a problem then, but is now a reality, right? Or whatever. It's just, they're fascinating. So anyway, so I hung around there for about 3 minutes and they were still reading ads. So I just moved on, but it was funny. Like Brett seemed more delighted to be reading the ads than she did, but both of them were literally, it was like they had it written on a paper here and they were reading it.
Well, have you ever seen, like, so I have two analogies. Did you see Being There with Peter Sellers?
I don't think so. What is it about?
Oh, it's it's about this gardener named Chauncey who's like retarded, and he's worked for the same very wealthy, I think it's a woman, for a very long time, and she dies, and he's just kind of like ejected from the estate where he's lived his whole life, and he meanders his way into like high society and presidents, and like what comes out of his mouth is just like kind of random gardening stuff. Like it doesn't grow unless you water it. And he becomes like this advisor to world leaders who's thought to be so wise and so intelligent. And that's what Brett reminds me of more and more.
I love it. I love it. Okay, done with that clip. On to the next. What is it?
Okay, so I feel like
Emma
we should.
Stone?
Well, yeah, we could do Emma Stone. This is just like peak. I kind of want to do Candace first.
Okay.
Because as ridiculous as Candace is, the Emma Stone one is just the cherry on the cake.
Okay. I also just am getting this this RFK one. Hold on a second, into the right box.
No problem. So just to contextualize the Candace one while you pull it up.
Yeah.
Candace did a video last week about how Rabbi Shmuley and his daughter had been harassing her for more than a year. It might have been 2 years, threatening her, slandering her online. And I guess she had just kind of like hit the wall. And so she did a video and she played some Instagram videos that Rabbi Shmuley and his daughter had both made about her. And then this rabbi jumps in and apparently wrote an article about what a racist anti-Semite Candace is. So Candace had him on her show. She did it live, so there was no editing. And it's completely and utterly ridiculous.
I listened to Glenn Greenwald's breakdown of it, but you know,
really?
He showed a few clips. Yeah, he did a breakdown. Yeah.
I'm curious to know, like, can you give me the cliff notes of what he said?
He basically he made comparisons between the criticisms people give him and her. He's basically saying they're the same thing, that while you condemned Hamas on October 8th, you haven't condemned them according to the template that we prescribe.
Correct.
There's no permittance for equating tragedies that happen to Palestinians with tragedies that happen to Israelis, because, you know, Israeli lives are more important and all of that kind of stuff, right?
And that's
look at October 7th in isolation.
Correct. And the dominant through line in all of these is if you are not, it's exactly what you said. If you're not denouncing according to this script, then you are the problem and you are an anti-Semite.
Correct.
But Candace was pretty much a badass in this interview. I love how she handled it. So we're going to start at 1:22:08. 1 minute and 22 seconds or 1 hour? 1 hour, 2 minutes, 8 seconds. This guy is as out of control as, like, remember the first Steve Kirsch?
This is the all-new Snap 4 Lux.
Yes.
On where, like, Steve Kirsch was, like, so, like, kind of Asperger's-y and spazzy.
Yeah.
Similar. Okay.
All right, ready?
Yeah.
Again, and I think you do want to discuss this as well, I'm going to guess. And I want to be conscious of your time because I think it's important. You said where you stand on October 7th. That's fine.
Pause.
You stand where you stand.
Make it big because it's worth it to see Candace. You have to watch Candace's facial expressions.
All right. There you go.
Fair use.
You make a comment in your comments back to Shmuley Boteach about, and again, you make an equivalency where you talk about the Hollywood Jewish gangs, that Kanye West believes that, and that shouldn't we be able to talk about that? And you make the analogy with Crips and Bloods, and I make the comment how anti-Semitic this is because it's a trope that goes back almost 100 years. There was and how Jews control Hollywood. In the 1920s, the Hollywood entertainment industry was started by the majority of the people who started those studios were Jews. They couldn't get jobs in any other business when they came to this country. Many of them were sons of rabbis. And there's a truth, and there's a great book called Empire of Their Own, how the entertainment industry was started by Jews. And how they did control Hollywood in the early days, they employed other Jews who were unemployable. That stops by the 60s and 70s and is totally gone by the 80s and 90s. Okay? And it is gone. It is a trope that people say. Understand that when we go back, remember we talked about the blood libel? Mm-hmm. Blood libel has become a term that's understood by academics, apologists, socialists, not political, but social.
So he's just debunked the racist myth that Jews run Hollywood. Apparently that was over by the 70s and the 80s.
I'm not concerned anymore, right? Like my Hollywood days were over by the end of the 80s. So clearly, the Jews are not in control of Hollywood anymore.
All I can say is like every studio head, every producer, it's like so over the top obvious. So I found that allegation hilarious.
Well, also like almost every powerful agent, every middleman position,
every manager.
Right. Like the thing that like, while there are not an extensive amount, did you see the satire? Well, he didn't say it was satire, but he did it so dry that it was so funny when basically Glenn Greenwald cried for how hard Jews have it.
Yes.
It was funny, right? Okay.
They need these special privileges instituted to protect them in Hollywood.
Well, it's true that I wouldn't say that like there's a dominant amount of like superstar celebrities that are Jew. I would say that that's probably the place where they're the least dominant. Where they're the most dominant are these middlemaning positions. Like that's what they really specialize in, is like the middleman. Like they don't, right? They kind of thing. And as agents, right? They that basically they're good at making deals and taking, and
they prey off of other people's talent. Like
that's it. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Right. So yeah, but it's like he's solved it all. We don't have to worry about it anymore.
Right. That's just not a thing. And for her to allege that that's a thing is completely anti-Semitic. Okay. Completely. So 1:33. The whole thing was
1:33
yeah, 1 hour, 33 minutes. The whole thing is so ridiculous that it's very entertaining. I found this probably one of the more entertaining pieces of media I've seen in a long time. So if you just want to laugh, I recommend everyone watch it. But here we're kind of wrapping up.
Okay.
Well, no, I'm genuinely am sorry if you interpreted my suspicion. I genuinely am sorry if you interpreted that, like my suspicion about a gang operating Hollywood to be some sort of a condemnation of all Jews. It's actually the exact opposite, which is why I specifically named.
I'm telling you that.
Are you going to let me speak? That is the reason why I specifically named Rabbi Shmuley, who was listed by Michael Jackson, who has been listed multiple times and who I believe operates like a gang member by his threats that he's been saying against me, that he's going to bankrupt me. I'm not going to pretend that I don't think that Rabbi Shmuley operates like a thug, and I'm going to withhold me stating that clearly because you're saying, well, that leans into an anti-Semitic trope. Him being Jewish doesn't mean anything to me. Him acting like a thug and making threats against my life and livelihood is something that I did say Rabbi Shmuley. I did say Rabbi Shmuley.
Go ahead, time out, because you just said something, okay, that is really beautiful if you walked that talk. You just said him being Jewish, him being a rabbi doesn't have anything to do with him being a thug.
I said that on my episode too, about the bugs in the crypts.
Wait. I don't watch your episodes, Candace, forgive me.
Well, how can you write these articles and then say, I'm sorry, I didn't watch it? That is completely ridiculous. So you get to write articles and libel me, but then say I didn't watch the episode. You wrote a whole section on the episode.
I watched the clips that you do, but I don't know what
that's ridiculous. You literally said, wrote an entire paragraph saying that I attacked him as a thug, that all of this stuff, and you bring up the Bloods and the Crips, which is from that episode, but failed to mention that I said they're using.
I watched your Blood Crips. Wait, Candace. I watched your Blood Crips part, and I read your comments on Twitter about calling him a thug.
I specifically, in that episode of Bloods and Crips, said that being Jewish is being used as seals has nothing to do with the fact that they're Jewish whatsoever.
But you kept saying, but you kept calling him a rabbi. And the simple reality is, if you really believe, okay, that Shmuley Boteach is doing something wrong,
he's operating like a thug,
which I hear you believe. If you believe that he is acting in whatever way, okay, calling him out on that, God bless you. But when you take it to the place of putting unholy rabbi, because that's your definition, when you take it to the place of him being if he's a jerk to you, he's a jerk to you. It doesn't matter if he's a rabbi, a priest, Jewish, or whatever, right? So why bring up the rabbi and Jewish part?
Well, first off, he goes by Rabbi Shmuley, so that's just his.
Wait.
Okay.
But wait, but why bring up if someone's being a jerk to you? It doesn't matter if they're white, black, purple, Jewish, Catholic, or anything else. They're being a jerk.
Okay.
So all we ever need to do is call them out for being a jerk.
I didn't say Rabbi.
It would be better if she just called him a jerk right now and then.
I know.
Oi, but you know what? She looks really pretty in the white suit. I've never seen her look so pretty. Like sometimes she looks rough to me, and sometimes she looks nice. But she looked great in that suit. She's looking good.
Fantastic. So basically, he's saying she's an anti-Semite because she keeps calling him Rabbi Shmuley, and by uttering the word rabbi, she clearly hates Jews. This whole thing is so ridiculous, and I love watching him toggle between out of control Asperger's toddler and then attempting to come back to like wise rabbi, wise, reasonable, and he just toggles between them. It's an amazing bit of ridiculousness.
Yeah. When I was listening to Glenn Greenwald today talk about this, he was explaining some of the things that have gone on between her and Ben Shapiro, right? And was trying to explain to people how the relationship that Ben Shapiro has with the Daily Wire is kind of similar to the relationship that he had with The Intercept, right? Where like he founded it, like he was he helped them get funding and get everything going, and like he was the main star, but he doesn't run the company, right? Like he's not in charge of making decisions for the company, even though he's like its main thing, right? And so when he was talking about that, I also started to think about him in relation to Candace Owen. Like, and he was wondering, like, people are surprised that Ben Shapiro hasn't fired her because she's anti-Semitic. And he was explaining that it's not really his company, even though he sort of helped to found it and whatever. But Candace Owens is kind of like Glenn Greenwald in some ways, right? In that, like, they're really good on some issues, and then on some other issues you're like, how can that, right? Like if that you're able to think so clearly about this one. And so it's kind of like the thing we just explained about Brett, right? Or whatever it is. Like, I don't know if I'm buying that feels weird to me or whatever it is. You know, and I've gone through periods of time with each where like I really like what they're saying, and other times I'm kind of suspicious of them. But I think with each of them, they do not like being told what they can or can't do, and they will not be controlled. If they suspect they're being controlled, they will fight back. If they think it's their idea, even though they're saying the same things as the controllers are saying or would want them to say or whatever, then sometimes like you see them wade into these areas that you're like, what? But as soon as they feel like their freedom to say and do whatever they want is under attack, they'll go fucking scorched earth. Right.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. They're like, they're very similar. Like her position in right-wing media is very similar to his position in left-wing media, including like how they started, where they came from, and what their sort of rise has been and whatnot. My guess would be that at some point she will leave the Daily Wire. Whether they fire her or don't renew the contract, or whether she decides this is bullshit, my guess is that she will leave, just like he left, right?
What if Trump chose her as his running mate?
That would be more interesting than any of the other people that are being tossed around.
The two of them as troll buddies?
Right.
Would be a whole new level of like low vibe shit slinging coming from the Oval. It would be so entertaining.
That would be fun. That would be fun.
So notice
I don't feel like I think she's moved away from some of the lower vibe stuff. I think she's actually like, I mean, I know like she's getting into some of the weeds around some of the attacks on her in some ways, but I feel like it was pretty brave and bold, but I don't think she thinks it that way. I think this was literally questions she's had, and because people have challenged her, it's become a bigger issue to her than it would have been with this stuff with that Palestine. Like, why is it a tragedy when something bad happens to Israel, but not, right? I think she literally had the question, and she's become more focused on it based on people freaking out over her asking the question.
It might be. She has not stopped shit slinging at all. Like, so the names she was hurling at Shmuley's daughter were a little, I will just say, low vibe.
Okay, I didn't see it.
I'm wondering if this whole thing isn't enough, because we've watched Candace back from, like, was it Red Pill Black?
Right.
Move way towards the right and becoming more Christian and playing that out. Why, again, she is entangled with these two like outspoken Jewish leaders who are the biggest fools, who are the worst representatives of Jewish people. I mean, he's wearing this cheap, shitty suit. His yarmulke keeps falling off. Have you ever seen a rabbi whose yarmulke was not like clipped on or positioned in a way, like, what are you, 12? You don't know how to wear your yarmulke at this stage, or you're playing the fool. You're playing.
Right.
This is getting so much time. So this is the second show she did in a week on this. This to me feels...
Okay, I don't follow that closely, so you would know more. Yeah, you would know more than...
This isn't feeling very authentic to me, especially because these two men are so ridiculous.
Right.
There's no dignity.
But do you think it's unauthentic coming from her, or do you think that people are setting her up knowing that she goes scorched earth and will do stuff like this, as opposed to just like, oh, I don't want to get involved in that and let it go?
It's certainly possible, and that's my preferred version, because I do like Candace, but I find it odd because this is such a distraction. Like, this is her low vibe cat fight. I find it odd that she would devote so much time to it. In terms of the whole bread and circuses distraction, is there nothing more newsworthy or relevant for her to be covering on her show than this cat fight? I don't know.
So, I guess there's a couple of ways one could think about it. And due to the nature of her workplace being, most of those people are pro-Zionist, whether they're Jewish or not. And obviously, Ben is the biggest personality there, is getting all of this nonsense that they say on the record, right? Like, is probably a smart move in case they do try to cut her out of her contract or something like that. And so when you have this, like, this person is basically saying, I'm anti-Semitic because I called Rabbi Shmuley by the name he calls himself.
Right.
Like, I mean, I don't know.
It's next level. And the righteousness, again, it's like we have these retarded monkeys who are pretending to be experts and leaders and wise men.
At least he didn't pick anything out of his ear like Eric Weinstein did. Right.
Okay, so the reason why this leads us into Emma Stone is because, as entertaining as this was, I just thought, okay, we've reached peak clown show. Because I also tuned into this the day after that censorship article that you and I were going through. But so I thought that was peak clown world ridiculous, but this is.
All right, so let's.
Emma, I don't know if you noticed, but when you won, Taylor Swift gave you a huge applause. You know, what are your thoughts on her cheering your win?
That's it.
What an am I right?
Cut.
No, I've known her for almost 20.
What a what?
She said, what an asshole. It doesn't even matter that someone would ask that question.
Right.
Taylor Swift was applauding you. What are your thoughts on that? Is this where we're at? Is this where we're at as a culture? This is what it's come to?
Well, remember, Taylor Swift is a government op, so yes.
Wow. Wow. Okay, that's all I got.
Okay, wait, no, you have this RFK thing you sent me?
Oh, that was just, I think it is so very, very clear. And I know what you have on RFK is far more relevant, but of just that his campaign is a joke.
Right,
Even he is not taking it seriously.
Found myself in a 50 push-up, pull-up, and 100 push-up challenge with Robert F. Kennedy and Aubrey Marcus. Oh my God. I'm not into political stuff, but Bobby is a beast and into real food, regenerative ag, health freedom, and disrupting sick care in the big food system. All right, let's see it.
That's kind of it. Does he not have more important things to do?
No. I mean, I think, Aubrey Marcus is funding his campaign in the world government. So no, working out with Aubrey Marcus is an important stop on your tour.
Notice how like he's never with the people. He's like doing these, $1,000 a plate or $30,000 a plate lunches in Malibu, or he's doing this like, this festival with like Luke Story and Aubrey Marcus. Like, this is not a serious candidate. This is someone who is, his ego is liking being in with the cool kids, and the presidency and that whole thing is completely secondary to him just being in with this crew.
So the only news that he really made this week is all of this chaos around who his VP pick might be, right? And in the beginning of the week, we heard that the short list included Tulsi Gabbard, Aaron Rodgers, and Jesse Ventura, right? And then, but right away, they basically said that Tulsi had been on the short list and had been going through the vetting process with them for months, but that she had suddenly become uncooperative, whatever that means. That was literally the term that they used. She's become uncooperative.
That came straight from Amaryllis's report.
Right. Uncooperative, right? Like, okay. Like my algorithm can't control her behavior anymore. She has a new algorithmic handler or whatever. So I thought that was strange language, right? Like she's become uncooperative. And then what the fuck? Like Aaron Rodgers, that's Aubrey Marcus's best friend. That would be it. That would be, I want money from Aubrey and I want all that crew behind me and whatever. And so
wait, is Aaron Rodgers really Aubrey Marcus's best friend?
Yes. Since they, yeah.
Because I saw a video, and I don't know if this was staged, but where they were telling Aaron Rodgers that he had made the list and he was totally clueless.
Yeah.
Like this wasn't, according to that, it wasn't something RFK and Aaron had a conversation about.
So I don't know, but yes, he is. I watched an interview. I watched this very interesting interview that is about a year or two old with Aubrey Marcus on a very small channel that there was some interesting thing. I was looking for, this was the last time we were focused on Aubrey in any significant way. I had found this, around that time. But I think that I actually didn't get to listen until after we had done the show. I was looking for any place where he addresses what his seemingly lack of friendship with Joe Rogan anymore. And there was a little bit in this about Joe Rogan, but it didn't really address it, but it kind of it was really weird. But in that interview, which was in some garden here in Austin or whatever, it was kind of interesting little location. He did say that Aaron Rodgers was his new friend and his best friend. He met him just in the last couple of years, but they're right. I think that's what he said. He said it somewhere. I'm pretty sure that's where he said it. So that would probably be the most likely connection there. And then Jesse Ventura, at this point, I think the entirety of his existence in our reality is part of WWE, right? It's just there to mock you and to punk you. And he says a few right things, but he's insane at this point, right? He ended, I love the clip that Kim Iverson had of him saying at the end of his show the whole time during COVID to stay inside, social distance, get vaccinated, and wear a mask, right? So, how does that, that's who he's going to pick, kind of thing.
These aren't serious choices. And also, you were speaking earlier about this need for expertise. Aside from Tulsi, none of these people are politicians.
Well, Jesse Ventura was the governor of Minnesota.
That's true. That's true. Okay.
Right. Jeff, he was actually, well, this is the whole thing. Like, this is what the Jesse Ventura and the same person who writes all of Jesse Ventura's books with him wrote RFK's recent book, right? For him. Right. Dick.
Who is that?
Dick Russell, I think is his name. Dick Russell. And I think, yeah. So I think he was involved in the TV show, the conspiracy theory show that used to be on Court TV that Jesse Ventura did.
Okay.
Too. So Jesse ran as an independent for governor in Minnesota, and he did the thing that everyone says politicians should do, and they all say that they might do, but they never do. And he did it. He was a one-term person. He wasn't trying to be a career politician. He made some changes. He shifted some things around, right, and whatnot. And I think that mostly he's seen as having done a good job and run an interesting campaign that shocked them. They didn't see it coming, and they weren't going to allow something like that again. But for the entirety of my being pretty much awake, to all of this stuff and paying attention to world events, he's been saying, oh, maybe I'll run for president, but I would need someone to give me ballot access in all 50 states. Like, he's not going to go out there and get it himself. Like, somehow the world owes delivering him, right, this ballot access kind of stuff. And he always says he's going to run and then doesn't run and all of this kind of shit. And, it keeps him in the news. It keeps his name relevant. It keeps him with a show on RT or being guests on people's shows and whatnot. But we have to remember how we got to know him he was Jesse the Body Ventura from fucking wrestling, which is basically the closest thing to what our government is.
Pretty much.
So at this point, the conversation we've been having over and over about no fourth wall, like, he's evidence of that, right? So and then all of a sudden there's this Del Bigtree goes on Kim Iverson, and he named someone else. I forget who he named. He named Schwarzenegger, right? Who isn't eligible to be. Yeah, he said that he name dropped Schwarzenegger, who isn't even eligible.
Fuck your freedom.
Well, he's also not eligible because he's not born in America. So
he's also horrible as our governor.
100%. But we're in a clown show when someone, right? Like, if RFK were to win the presidency, we'd have to all say that he's the most likely to be assassinated of any president since his uncle or whatever, right?
But also how no one on his team has any experience in this realm.
Correct.
Del, Amaryllis.
Correct.
Charles Eisenstein.
Well, Amaryllis does have experience, because I think we should all at this point understand that the CIA has been running our government for a really long time. So Amaryllis does have experience. But
she doesn't have experience running campaigns.
Sure. Yeah.
It's a joke. The whole thing is a joke. Is this how he's going to be as a president? He's just going to have all his like Aubrey's going to be Secretary of State.
Yes. Because what she does know is that the politicians are just puppets, that they're not the ones running the show. So you put together the coolest team of superheroes so everyone can vote for their favorite.
The dream team. Brett's dream team.
Exactly. 100%.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the week, it was Nicole Shanahan, ex-wife of Sergey Brin, founder of Google, who's been a lifelong donator to the Democratic Party, who maybe had an affair with Elon Musk, though she and Elon Musk both deny it, and that's what broke up the relationship with Sergey Brin, who doesn't like evil use of AI, but is for pro-democracy use of AI. I mean, just like all of this. But what? What? Who is she? Right.
And does she have any political experience?
No, she's a lawyer and she works in big tech. So
yes, this is a nightmare.
So the answer actually is yes, because lawfare and big tech run our government in cahoots with the CIA and the WWE or the WWF or whatever it is, right?
Right.
And Aubrey's dream team, right? And Aubrey's dream team. Okay. All right. So I think we're through with those clips, but I do want to talk a bit about Tulsi, right? The uncooperative Tulsi. So I did listen to about 10 minutes, but that was all I could bear because it was like somebody recorded it on their phone from the audience. So the sound.
Oh my God, I pushed through because I thought you watched the whole thing. It was torture.
Everywhere I go is noisy. So, right. So like when you're trying to listen to something that has a lot of background noise and there's also noise, like when I'm at work, I'm in the refrigerator, right? When I'm out exercising, there's like ambient noise. It just was, when I'm in the car, like I just couldn't get it right. So I listened to as much as I could. And then I'm like, I'm not going to play a clip from this because it sounds terrible. But my guess would be that she became uncooperative because she had decided that Trump was the right train to be on, not RFK.
Yep.
For whatever reason. And so I listened to her speech at Mar-a-Lago, which was a dinner being put on by something called the 917 Society, the 917 Society. I think that's what it was. It was either 917 or 907 Society.
Have we looked up the gematria on that?
I didn't look up the gematria, but I did look them up. I went to their website, and this is a 501c3 that is dedicated to getting pocket constitutions into the hands of as many 8th graders as possible, and to make sure that on Constitution Day, schools are teaching about the Constitution, right? Like this is their mission. Okay.
Cool.
Which was kind of interesting that was what was the deal. So I did notice in the 10 minutes that I was able to listen to, and you can confirm whether she did it or not the rest, that she did not say our democracy once, but she did say our republic twice, which is more evidence of the algorithmic switch on some level, right? She's there speaking to the people who believe in the Constitution. She said our Constitution multiple times, and she said our republic twice. I have never heard her say our republic before. She always says our democracy. So Tulsi is a traitor to our democracy, and she's now on team our republic.
She loves our show, and she's taking notes, and she's learning.
It's fascinating to watch all of these people. What was the other one I sent you today about the adjustment? No, it was the same. Was it that? What was the other one? There was some other. But right, have to adjust their talking points based on us like raising enough heck about it for long enough. And it's always funny when they do it, the way they do it. Like, I don't think there's not much in me that thinks we can have effect on any of this, but especially in the early days when Brett would address these criticisms, the awkward way he would do it let me know that I hate these two fucking annoying Jewish girls from the Valley, but I'm gonna correct myself, just because if I don't, then they'll keep whining about it, right? So that's the tell. Whereas like the Tulsi thing seems more algorithmic. I'm under no delusion that she's watching our videos, right? But it's like
her handlers might be.
Well, it's the machine learning. It's like the Google machine learning is just generating a different algorithm for her to sort of pick up on. But yeah, so she's now team Our Republic. Did you ever watch? What was that show with Kerry Washington where she played the lawyer in she worked in, what's that show with Kerry Washington? Kerry Washington.
Roseanne is another one who speaks about the our democracy, our republic switcheroo.
Scandal was that show with Kerry Washington. Like the way that they would talk about our republic and what our republic meant to them, that's kind of more what I see Tulsi Gabbard talking about than what the constitutionalists think of our republic. But she'll play the word game. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, I was just going to say she could have gotten it from Roseanne. It's quite possible Roseanne has met her and said something.
It's entirely possible. But also, like, when you're going to present in front of the people who believe in the Constitution, they're not going to be down with our democracy.
Right.
Because they know the difference between a republic and a democracy. In fact, in the About Us page on the 917 Society, it explains about our republic that uses a democratic means of election. So they separate it, right? And so if she went there and said our democracy, that would be like talking about Allah at the Catholic Church. You know what I mean? Like it would be.
But I wonder if she knew that, or if like they corrected her, or do you know what I'm saying? Like, do you think she's been saying our democracy incorrectly on purpose?
I think, I think a couple of things. I think that's been the script she's been reading for a really long time. And I think early on, she thought she was going to be with RFK and he was going to run as a Democrat. And then the reason he left the Democratic Party was to save our democracy. So either way, like that was a good line. I think Tulsi is a climber. She wants to, run the military dictatorship eventually. And so she's course correcting on the path to the chair.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. So I thought that was really an interesting thing to hear her, and I didn't hear Our Democracy once. So the title of this episode will be Traitor to Our Democracy, spelled the M-O-C-K, that we used to title our live streams.
Of course. So wait, I think it's noteworthy that 917 means crooked Joe Biden.
Right? I like it. But the other thing that has been popping into my mind, right, with Tulsi, as she sort of gains steam and she's sort of campaign shopping and all of this kind of stuff, and that she's abandoned the democracy thing and whatever it is. Again, same like the thing with Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? If she or with Trump, if either one of them were for some reason unable to fulfill their duties as president, whether they're in lawfare or someone takes them out or whatever,
It's a wrestling match.
She would be president, right? And I don't believe her when she makes the switch from Our Democracy to Our Republic. I think she is an Our Democracy person.
Okay.
Right? She understands that democracy is more authoritarian than a republic, and she's an authoritarian at heart, in my opinion, right? And it makes me wonder if all of this nonsense with her for the past 12 years or 10 years, or whenever she was the head of the DNC and quit to support Bernie Sanders and pretended to be in fights with Hillary Clinton and pretended to be against Kamala Harris, was this way of building up goodwill with the American people, that she opposed that, right? To now get her into a position where she'll end up, because she believes in, she just only separates the whole like regime change war from all of the other wars. She isn't anti-war, right? But like, it almost makes me wonder if this was like a move from the Democratic Party to sort of trick the people back into sort of the synthesis, right?
That actually makes sense. I mean, of course. Oh, go ahead.
Because look what they've done, right? Back like in the 60s and 70s, the McCarthyism and the anti-communist shit, like that was all right-wing stuff, people who were afraid of Russia. Now it's the left who's afraid of Russia. So they're not afraid to completely switch sides.
Yeah.
Like the Democrats were slave voters, and the Republicans are the racist ones, right? They're not afraid to like do the old flipperoo, switcheroony, it make people believe that it's a different boss, but it's the same old fucking boss. So I think that like there's a lot of things I think Tulsi Gabbard, Chris Minor, can you hand me my phone? Chris Minor sent me something after one of our shows a couple of weeks ago when I was talking about how, well, he and I had done a glass bead game, where we saw the whole thing about like Kamala and Kali, and I told you about that. And then we were talking about it like with the Nikki Haley and Tulsi Gabbard. Oh, we're going to have an Indian woman in the White House.
Yep.
He sent me something that was about the name Gabbard. Let me see if I can find it real fast here. And go back a few texts here. Look at the seal of well, he said something about the name Gabbard, but I can't find that one right now. But he sent me this picture of the seal. She was born in Samoa, right? He said, look at the seal of where she was born, and that her birthday is the anniversary of the Columbia mission, right?
Weird.
Right. So, but there was something else that he sent me about the name Gabbard, and I thought it was in this text, but it's not. But that thing almost looks like a hammer and sickle.
Totally.
Right? Like that symbol is like some sort of like tiki version of a hammer and sickle or something like that, right?
Totally.
Okay. All right. So that's all I got on Tulsi. Was there anything else that no, I talked about RFK, I talked about Tulsi. I'm just checking back in our texts to each other. And then we can talk a little bit about this article that you sent me about the censorship.
Well, and also, did you hear about the Supreme Court thing around government? That is not good. That is really not good.
Okay, we got all those other things. Which one do you want to do first? That USAID article, the Supreme Court thing, or my little bit about Jared Kushner?
Let's do USAID. I feel like it's kind of the same as the Supreme Court. Like, it's just all these attacks on speech.
Yeah. So the article is by Mike Benz, who this weird New York Times article that is really sort of prepping people for what's going to happen with the Supreme Court case starts to tie Mike Benz to Taibbi and Schellenberger in a way that actually isn't true, right? Like they're basically saying that they got all this that Mike Benz influenced their reporting on the Twitter files, even though the bulk of their reporting happened before they ever met Mike Benz, right? So there's some confusion around that, but my guess would be that they're trying to kill all the birds with one stone by like doing it this way. So everything that was in this article that you sent me is stuff that I have seen, things that have been talked about separately. This is all condensed into one article about this sort of one group, right? This one group that's doing this disinformation primer. You sent it, so I want to hear what you're focused in on. And there's one thing in there that really stood out to me based on something else that's going on very publicly simultaneously, but I want to hear what you have to say first, and then I will point out.
I think, first of all, that it took them 2 years to even get it, I find really alarming. They filed a Freedom of Information Act, and they still weren't given this document, and then they just got clever in finding it. Can you scroll down?
Sure.
I think the pre-bunking is a problem. This, focusing in on to hold out on that document. Scroll back up. There, yeah, that thing.
Yes.
No, not the commie fist. That.
Okay.
Have you heard that? I hadn't heard the phrase education ministries in this country. Is that what they're actually called? Do we have education ministries here and I'm just clueless as to this?
We definitely have them, but they're usually not that blunt about it. So now they're in the phase where they don't feel like they need to be, they don't need to mince words anymore if they're calling it that.
Yep.
Right. Look at this. This is my favorite part. Tell stories about the scale and threat posed by information disorder.
Oh, and disorder. So now we're going to pathologize it, or right, it's a health threat.
Right. Just like, remember people who like to eat healthy, that's a new eating disorder. Remember that one? Yeah.
Or is that white privilege? It's probably both. And
then exercise is right wing. It's that same kind of thing, right?
So eliminate financial incentives. They talk a lot about this, of like blocking advertisement.
Right.
On anything alt media.
Right.
Let's see. Okay, so scroll down. I mean, it was just seeing it all in print.
Right.
And the audacity. And they're trying to do, just keep scrolling a little bit. Here we go. Psychological inoculation. To protect people from digesting disfavored information, redirect them. One of the things that they say that they're going to do in this is if people put in a search, say it was like, Open Society, George Soros, Brett Weinstein. And they said that it would train the algorithm to take you completely off topic.
Correct.
Into something else, which is, I feel like we kind of have that now.
We have that now, and they keep for my whole life, they've been doing this, and then it gets overturned, and then they come back and do the same thing with a new name. They used to call it like the fair, it was called like the fair, it was something where like you had to, like on the radio airwaves and whatever it is, like there couldn't be more right-wing content than left. It was called the fairness doctrine or something. There was some term where there had to be like an equal opposite to everything.
Correct.
Right. And that got taken away. And there's like, there's a whole, they definitely try to, it's been going on for a long time on YouTube, people who were like tending towards alt-right information, they made sure that nothing but Ben Shapiro videos would come up in their recommended, because Ben Shapiro is like tolerable right-wing for the system, even though they pretend they don't like him. And remember when they tried to they tried to rebrand the alt-right as like people like Ben Shapiro and, you know, all that kind of stuff. Like they never talked about the real alt-right, right? Because they didn't want people to actually find the real alt-right. So they tried to do this weird, I don't know, whatever it was. They've been doing this over and over in different ways. But this idea of like an informational vaccine, right? Or something like that like, oh, you're inoculated so that like, even if you hear the words, you're just tuning them out, right?
Exactly.
You already know, just to discount them from word go.
Right, or to just staple them as conspiracy theory. So this one, wait, just right there, I think that's so, just stop right there. Stop. USA, you could stop. USAID's censorship guide proposes a pre-bunking strategy recommended by influential censorship industry insider Joan Donovan, who formerly led Harvard's counter disinformation lab. I didn't know we had a censorship industry in this country.
Oh yeah, we've had a censorship industry for a long time, but I like how they like counter disinformation lab feels like you'll go in there and there'll be people with like petri dishes and they'll have like sentences that they're holding with a little tweezer and dropping it into some solution to see how it reacts, right? Like it sounds like some sort of like highly scientific study as opposed to just like a propaganda brainwashing op. But this is what Harvard and MIT and all these people do. See how they call it the counter disinformation lab? Right? I guarantee you that on the other side of the hall, they have a lab called Disinformation Lab. So they experiment with creating disinformation and then they experiment with the practice of countering their own disinformation kind of thing. Literally the same school, I think it was MIT, that says cold fusion doesn't exist, has a cold fusion lab where you can watch a video of their cold fusion device, right?
Yep.
So this is what they love to do, right? The other thing that's on here is like they are protecting against.
Hold, because I just want to continue in this part before we move on.
Okay.
As a measure to counter disinformation and make debunking more impactful, Donovan recommends pre-bunking, which she defines as an offensive strategy that refers to anticipating what disinformation is likely to be repeated by politicians, pundits, and provocateurs during key events, and having already prepared a response based on past fact checks. That is insane. They are choosing things from the past before they'd even happened, not even like pretending to wait and do any research to see if there's any truth. Like this is the most unethical, disgusting thing I've ever heard. I can't believe it's in print.
It's like this new law that they're trying to pass in Canada, the pre-crime law, right? Arresting people who might commit a crime and they can even get life sentences when they haven't done anything, right?
But what this is like the pre-crime law and giving these people life sentences based on all the facts from the court cases of other people who've been convicted of the same things, but not looking at the facts in this case.
Correct. Right.
Wow.
Yeah. Right. And language. Right. And there's they've even changed their original definition of malinformation. They used to say that malinformation was information that was true but not convenient to mainstream narratives. Now they say malinformation is like doxing and shit like that, right? Because they don't even want people like this is how crazy it's getting, right? This is like made up nonsense.
Correct.
Highest order, right?
Correct.
Like, this is no longer even in touch with anything that is real.
No.
Right?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Like, right. Before they were just wrong, but it was in touch with reality and it was criminal and it was in touch with reality. This is just like, what are you even talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right here, malinformation is now deliberate publication of private information for personal or corporate rather than public interest, such as revenge porn, deliberate change of context, dates, or time of genuine content.
Now, to be fair, this document was from 2022, so that might have been their first definition of this made-up.
Okay, maybe they changed
it. Yes.
So they're just
more sense.
bringing down all there's no more need to cover things, but now we're just telling you it's true information that we don't like, so that counts the same as false information, which you like, right? Okay, so the part that's been the most interesting to me, I like how some information is problematic. It's not false or lies or whatever, it's just problematic.
Also, go back up a second. Satire or parody is now missing disinformation.
Yeah, of course it is, right?
Okay.
But the part that was the most interesting for me is this part here. USAID targeting gamers pushes the need to censor interpretations of the world that differ from mainstream sources. In one revealing section from USAID's disinformation primer, the government agency identifies the top disinformation threat as not being state actors driving the issue, but rather that problematic information more regularly originates from networks of alternative sites and anonymous individuals who have created their own alt media online spaces. Meaning USAID sees the key threat as ordinary individuals online forming independent opinions, not foreign intelligence agencies performing complex influence operations. So they simultaneously say Russia's at fault for everything while secretly knowing that that's not true and being worried more about you and I. USAID goes on to say these—
Is that a secret?
No. But it's funny to me that they would write it down, is the part that's fascinating.
Right. The audacity of this document is next level.
Right. USAID goes on to say that these alternative spaces include message boards and digital distribution platforms like Reddit, 4chan, or Discord, and gaming sites. USAID bemoans that such gaming sites and message boards allow ordinary citizens to form interpretations of the world that differ from mainstream sources. Right? With this, individuals contribute their own research to the larger discussion, collectively reviewing and validating each other to create a populist expertise, not an enlightened expertise, a populist expertise that justifies, shapes, and supports their alternative views. Okay, what's interesting to me about this is there's someone who has emerged that just doesn't make sense, and that is Destiny. Why is he being included in intellectual conversations and debates about geopolitical issues, right? Like that was the weirdest thing to see him at the table with Benny Morris and Norm Finkelstein and whatever, and arguing with Glenn Greenwald and Alex Jones about January 6th. And like this person who I don't understand what he's a gamer. He's a gamer, right? And Sabby the other day was like having a section of her podcast about the fact that he's a plant. There's no way this makes any sense. She was looking at his background. She's like, either it's a made up background, and this is like, he's an intelligence asset who they created a background for, or he really is a gamer who just, people, there's a lot of these guys who are like a Hassan Piker and Destiny and Bosch, or all of these people, and they're all basically pretending to be sort of radical progressives or socialists, but at the end of the day, they tell you to vote for Joe Biden, right? Whatnot. It's fucking weird. But what is he doing? He is a gamer. So here you are, they're saying we don't trust gamers, and they're also saying, but gamers hold more important opinions and should be included in intellectual debates than people who have done their own research about about the Israel-Palestine issue or whatever. But this is like there's no such thing as cold fusion, and we have a cold fusion lab. Right? Like, it's the same thing. So we can't listen to gamers, but we're going to push forward a gamer that like literally he holds every fucking vanilla opinion about everything that one could ever hold. Right. But they act like he's this, independent thinker, and he's got all this street cred because he's a gamer, and he's got a Discord channel and a Twitch channel. And I don't know. It's fucking weird. But so we should ask the question, like, who is this person and where does he come from and why? But also, like, if the idea that they feel the need to conquer the gaming space that way, like they've already conquered it in terms of like the kids who play all those shooting games are going to have no trouble growing up to be drone operators, right? But now they have to conquer the chat room on the side, because like one of the things about the way people play video games now is they don't just play the game, they also like talk in the sidebar while they're playing the game. Right. So I guess they're like shooting each other over here and then talking politics over here. And that needs to be conquered. Like, I like, wow, this is a highly paranoid group of people.
Indeed. Yeah. I thought like, okay, is this Destiny person famous? Like, I just assumed that he deserved his place at the table, but we are seeing quite a lot of him these days. And I had never heard of him.
Yeah, I mean, I've been watching this. This is the ascent has been happening over about the past year and a half to 2 years. I think he was very popular in the gaming space for a while, but this sort of move into more influential in the political space has been happening for a while. And of course, the first place I ever saw a long form interview with him was on the Lex Fridman show, right? Which, oh, by the way, somebody else made a post this week on X about, would anybody be surprised to find out?
Someone sent that to me.
That Lex Fridman is Google AI's, real experiment or whatever it is. So other people are catching on. But yeah, so I think that those are do we have anything else? I think that was the.
Did you want to mention Kushner?
Oh yeah, Kushner was. I watched a video. I think you can find it on the Breaking Points channel. I don't have it pulled up here. He was interviewed by The Guardian this week about the situation going on in Israel, because remember, he was the person who really did the whole like weird Abraham Accords that was like normalizing relationships with like Jordan and Qatar and Saudi Arabia, and everybody was pretending like this is solving the Middle East problem, even though he just completely ignored the Palestinians and that whole Abraham Accords thing, right? Well, in this interview, he also literally ignores the Palestinians. The interviewer tries to ask him, what about the Palestinians? Like a lot of the he was like, well, it's unfortunate that nobody wants to take Palestinian refugees. And the guy's like, well, but there's also this issue that like they don't want to leave because they're afraid that if they leave, then they won't be allowed back. And he's like, maybe, but like Gaza was always a construct anyway. It's been a lot of different things. And right now it's mostly destroyed. So we should focus on the fact that it's this beautiful waterfront property that could be developed. So if you want to see the grossest thing you've ever seen, go check out Jared Kushner, the clip of Jared Kushner talking to the interviewer from The Guardian.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. I think we did have, I asked if people had any questions when I posted the community thing today. I asked if people had any questions for us, and there was 3 questions, but one of them is not relevant to our show. So I will decline to answer the questions about ancient particle accelerators here and stay mostly on topic, but may address it at some point somewhere else. But so I'll do the other 2. So James Kaplan wants to know, hi, James, always nice to hear from you. What is your take on the missing Princess of Wales and Obama showing up at 2 Downing Street? And one more question, who is Jordan Hall? Okay, so those are definitely relevant questions. I'm aware that there's a story about Kate Middleton maybe being missing in some doctored picture, but I haven't really dug into it, so I don't have much of an opinion. And then I don't know anything about Obama at number 2 Downing Street. So we'll let Dani answer whether she has an opinion on either of those things. And Dani knows more about Jordan Hall than I do, so I'll let her answer that as well.
I don't really care about the royal anything.
Yeah, me too.
I really couldn't possibly care less. And I also don't know anything about it. Jordan Hall is part of the whole. So he started the Neurohacker Collective with Daniel Schmachtenberger. So remember, it was the nootropic that delivered Daniel Schmachtenberger to us in the same way it was a nootropic that delivered Aubrey Marcus to us.
And Joe Rogan on the levels. The fleshlight and nootropic, yeah.
Correct. And I believe he's also part of, he might be both Santa Fe Institute and Lifeboat Foundation. But he's in that whole like rotating circle jerk of consilience podcast, Vervaeke, Jim Rutt, David Fuller, like they're all just kind of in that little consilience disinformation crew together. There's probably more. I'm pulling up my notes.
So James comes to us probably more through the pipeline of me. So in terms of ways that it would be relevant to things that we understand, James, it would be like system has seen for a long time that there's an us problem coming. So who that is the children of the people that are on their crew, can they set into motion to speak the language that will be attractive enough to like people who aren't quite yet balls deep in like alternative information or conspiracy stuff, but like have maybe done some psychedelics and are open to the possibility that we've been lied to about a few things. So have like the next layer of your operation ready with people who speak some of our language, but are employing all of the tactics of the system that we're all tired of. Was that a good, that's who that group of people are. Was that a good summary, Dani?
That was great. You rocked it. And then just here, because I just happen to have these on my computer. So co-founder Neurohacker, they gave us Qualia, and then a trustee at Santa Fe Institute. And here's everything that he works on: cognitive enhancement, neurological optimization, social change, systems thinking. Like it's always those realms of crossover with this crew.
Yeah, so like Dani and I have been focused in for a long time on this group of people that seem to be bridging the space between like the main members of the intellectual dark web and then like the sort of psychedelic or alternative information or sort of spiritual kind of communities, right? And they're part of that. So Santa Fe Institute and Lifeboat are trying to sort of control the layer of like complexity questions. Let's put it that way. So I hope that was helpful. And then the next question was, sorry if this is off topic, but I'm pretty ignorant to anything political. Question: do you two ever experience dry periods of life where you feel like you're waiting for the next phase? And then there's another sentence, but when I click on it, it disappears. I think this is one of the comments that YouTube chose to censor for me because I don't censor them. It just, you know how people say their comments don't show up and you know you didn't move them?
Correct.
Correct. So I can see it when I hit notifications, but when I click on it to go read the rest of it, it's not there. So I can only answer the part that there. Yeah, I do feel sometimes like there's periods of time. When you say dry periods, I don't know if you mean like periods where like you're not as in flow or you're not having as many sort of like synchronicities or glass beads or not figuring things out, or you're kind of not, you know, like I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, but yeah, I definitely have very active periods and then times where everything feels sort of recessed and I'm just sort of waiting to see like where the next round of the game will take me or whatever it is. So I'm definitely familiar with that. I'm sure Dani is too, but I'll let her answer for herself.
All the time.
Dani is a writer, so I think the writers' dry periods are called writer's block. I've never heard.
I mean, no. Actually, that's not true. I'm never creatively blocked. I don't have that one. But I'm sorry. I was taking dry periods to mean like annoyed with having taken incarnation on a prison planet filled with ingrate monkeys who love their enslavement.
Well, I think it could be either, right? I think the dry period just means like when shit is like, you don't really know where you're going next. Like what you were doing seems kind of over and you don't know what the next thing is. But I think that also happens to writers. And oftentimes that's called writer's block in like their context of their work, as opposed to just life in general.
I don't have that because
I've never heard you say it. Yeah.
Pathologically creative. So for me, I'm always like staving it off. Like, can I just rest before creating another thing?
Or the next flood. All right, now let's go to our chat room. So thank you people for questions. And now let's go to the chat room for this and see if anybody wants to. Oh, I see somebody if you guys have questions or comments, all caps, please. It's easier for me to see.
Nigel asked if either of us would go on Rogan or Russell Brand. And I'm sure we're topping their lists right now.
Right. I mean, it seems so, it's like, I don't think it's one of those, like for me to take up brain space considering what I would do in a scenario. It has to be something with like a small likelihood of ever happening. And I don't think that's part of that.
Right.
But no, I mean, I think it's a hard question because it's like, okay, one would want to think, okay, I'm going to go there and hold my own, right? Or whatnot. So I'm going to do it. But then there's another thing. It's like, like I'm so turned off by so much of it. Like, I don't even know if I want to play in that sandbox, but I don't think there's any likelihood of any of that ever happening. So I don't have to worry about it. So I don't know. I would be shocked. Dani, Dani'd probably go. You'd probably go on it.
I would totally go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd
and no, I don't.
She'd probably go.
Yeah, I don't think that that's happening.
And then she'd call me after and she'd say, "Did you think?" Because this is what always happens. Do you think that they were like trying to see if they could figure out how to handle me? Dani
so
always
slow
goes
on
to
that.
these things, and then she's like, "It was weird. Like, do you think they were doing an operation on?"
And you're like, of course.
Okay. All right. So the next in all capital letters, because that's the only thing as I can read. Meg, who asked the question that about the dry periods and the other thing, right? Political streamers like Destiny and Hassan have a massive reach amongst the youth. It makes sense for them to move into the mainstream to push their bad ideas. That's why they're seated at the table. 100%. I agree with that completely. James Kaplan is saying Qualia, that is the second time he's heard that this week.
Right, and I responded to him that I don't recommend it because when they gifted it to me, it drained my serotonin.
And I've had Vincent Rado on the show recently talking about the serotonin syndrome that he has. All right, what are your all's thoughts on the eclipse and hype? Dani, do you have any thoughts on the eclipse and the hype around it?
It seems appropriate. I think the hype seems appropriate. I mean, we've all been waiting for the next scary thing. They've given us quite a little rest, but we know what their plan is. They've invested a lot of energy and resources. So, and given the astrology this year, like, I buy into the hype.
Yeah, I don't know. Jeff and I were talking about this today, and like on some like maybe there's a thing, but like maybe it's also like the Kate Middleton thing. Like, I don't know if I care, right? Like, I just totally. Like so there's two things. Like, they've been like getting us all excited about shit for a long time and nothing happens. And then you also are careful about not becoming so jaded that when something happens, you don't notice it because you're asleep at the wheel. So it's a constant back and forth between the devil and the angel and like the 5D chess player and the 12D chess player. And, that's my thoughts on that. So Esamita says, look up Dr. Disrespect and how he got banned mentioning AJ. Okay, I don't
Alex
know.
Jones?
Yeah, I'm sure that is. I don't know who Dr. Disrespect is. All right. So anybody else? Questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, anything else?
Oh, I'm coming to Texas. I'm speaking at a conference in Texas first week of April, if anyone's in the hood.
Very good. Yes, you're going
if anyone who doesn't have stalker tendencies is in the hood.
You gotta be careful, right? That's what you'll be doing on the eclipse. I'll probably I don't know, I'll probably go out to dinner and have a fancy cocktail like I normally do. Right? That's how I celebrate the good times, the bad times,
every times,
the false flags, the whatever it is, right?
We should get a poll going on what the next false flag is going to be. That would be fun. Because then it would just make it more fun when the terrible things happen. If it's like, oh, I'm going to win $50.
We can include that in our drinking game or whatever it is, right?
We need a whole game production team to help us execute.
Come up with shot glasses and little dice and little, little things that we could play a drinking game every time.
Dartboard.
Evolutionary, emergent, complexity, biology,
meaning making,
deploy sense making,
meta crisis.
Yeah, all that stuff. Okay, all right. I think let's see. Jean is waiting for the alien invasion. Yeah, that's going to be the next false flag that she's rooting for. The alien invasion.
I think that'll be a fun one.
There's something on your screen, like there's like this haze tonight that every time, right, sort of in the middle of your portal, right, there's like smoke or some sort of haze coming out of it. And every time you back up and then lean forward again, it looks like you're blowing a puff of smoke. Like it looks like you're vaping or something. I don't know, right? All right. Anything else? I think we're done.
I think
Going
we are
once,
done.
Going twice. Go to wordspodcast.locals.com. Use the promo code Welcome to Words, all capital letters in one word. There'll be a new show there tomorrow. Thank you all very much. We love you. Good night.
Good night.